Hello and welcome. Today we are going to solve the final exam review in order to help you prepare for the final exam. So in order to identify the coordinate for point A, we put a pencil at the origin, and to get there we move 1 to the left and then 4 up. So this would be -1, comma 4. And then make sure you put in parentheses. And let's go to letter B. So to the letter B we'll go 3 to the right, and then we stay there. So 3 to the right will be +3, and staying there will be 0. Very well. Letter C. To get letter C, we stay there, and then we go down 3. So stay there will be 0, and going down 3 will be -3. Please remember, we are doing the following. We're doing the horizontal number first, and the vertical number second. So horizontally, if you go to the left, is negative. If you go to the right, is positive. And if you don't move, is 0. And here, vertically, you're going to go up is positive, and down is negative. And if you don't move, is 0. So that's basically what we're doing in these problems. So let's do letter D. Letter D, you stay there, both on the horizontally and both on the vertically. So this would be 0, 0. That's the origin. Letter E, we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4 to the left, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down. So this would be -4 to the left, -4, and then -5. And for our last point, we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and down 2. So 5, -2. And there we go. This is how you would plot the points for these problems. Let's go on to the next question. In this next question, we're going to plot the points. So you're going to start at the origin. And since the first number is 0, you stay there and then you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and that will be point A. Then we're going to do the second point, which is -2. So 2 to the left, and then 1, 2, 3. So this would be point B. Next one is -6, so we'll go left 6, and then up 3. That will be letter C. For letter D, we're going to go -3 to the left, and then 0 means we stay there. So letter D. Letter E, we're going to go -5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then down 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So this would be letter E. Next point is 0, -2. So we stay there and we go down 2. That will be letter F. Letter G is 5, -4. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then down 1, 2, 3, 4. So this would be letter G. Next one is letter H, which is 3, 0. So 1, 2, 3, and we stay there. The next problem is 6, 3. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 1, 2, 3 up. So this would be letter I. And the last one is letter J. So 2 to the right, and then up 3. So this would be letter J. So there we go. These are the points for this problem. All right, let's go on to the next problem, problem number 3. In this one, you're giving a mapping. You're asked to translate into a table and a graph. Best thing to do is to do the table first. So we're going to follow the arrows. So this would be -2, 4. This would be our first order pair. Then I'm going to follow this other arrow here. So this would be -2, 0. Then I'm going to do -1, 3. and then 0, 2. And the last one will be 1, 1. Now that I have my table, I'm going to plot the points. So negative 2, up 4 will be the first point. Then I'm going to do negative 2, 0. So negative 2 to the left, and then 0, stay there. The next one is negative 1, so 1 to the left, and then 3 up. The next one is 0, so we stay there and go up 2. And the last one is 1, comma 1. So you go 1 to the right, and then 1 up. And there we go. These are going to be your points. Next problem is to determine the domain and range, and is it a function, yes or no? So the domain, because I have a line, I'm going to do the setup. And if you remember, when you do domain, you want to look for the x values, and you want to use your pencil as a ruler. So let's say here I have my pencil, and we use it two ways, one on the horizontal and one on the vertical. So let's do the vertical first, because that's how we use for the domain. So from left to right, the first place I touch is right there, which would be negative 2 with no dash because the point is empty. And as I move my pencil across, the last place I touch is right there. So this would be 3. And you will have a dash because the point is solid. Now that I've done my domain, I'm going to do my range. I'm going to go from bottom up using my pencil or the horizontal, and the first place I touch is negative 5. So let's start out with the arrangement here, with the setup. And first place I touch is negative 5 with no dash because the point is empty. And I keep moving up until I stop touching the line, and I stop touching the line up there, which would be 4. So it would be with a dash. Very well. And then, is it a function, yes or no? To find out, I need to use my pencil at the vertical, and I'm going to move my pencil from left to right, and I'm only supposed to touch one point at a time to be a function. And because I'm only touching one point at a time, yes, it is a function. The next problem, the graph is not a line, so I know I'm going to have a list of numbers. And since I have my pencil like this, I'm going to check if it's a function, and it's not a function because I'm touching 2 points. So let's go ahead and click that. And to find the domain, I'm going to start from left to right. First place I touch is negative 2. And then if I continue moving my pencil, the next place is 0, followed by 2, followed by 4. So let's write those numbers down, separated by commas. So the next point is 0, 2, and 4. Now I'm going to do my range, and I'm going to use my pencil from bottom up, and the first place I touch is negative 4. So let's write there negative 4. And then I'm going to continue moving my pencil up. So right there is negative 3, negative 2. So let's write that down, negative 3, negative 2, followed by, you're moving up, 1 and 3. So this would be 1 and 3. So there you go. These are my domain and range for these functions, or relations, I should say. Because this is a function, but this one is not a function. All right, so let's go on and do the domain for this one. I have a line, so that means I'm going to start with my setup. So anytime you see a line, make sure you do the setup, which are these. And first place I touch on the x-axis would be negative 4 with the dash because the line is solid. And as I continue moving my pencil from left to right, for last place I touch is right there, which would be positive 3 with no dash. So now I'm going to move my pencil from bottom up to find the range. In the first place I touch is -4. And because the line is solid, I'm going to put a dash. And the last place I touch will be up there, which is +4, with the dash because the point is solid as well. And is this a function? Well, let's do the vertical line test. Remember, the vertical line says that you're only supposed to touch one point at a time and only touching one point. But right here, I'm touching many points. And also over here, if you notice, I'm touching 2 points at the same time. So that means this line is not a function. All right, let's go to the next example here, or the next problem. And I see I have a line, so I am going to do the setup. Okay, remember, put the X, the Y, and the inequality signs. And we're starting moving the pencil from left to right to find the domain. In the first place I touch is right there, and the value there is -3. And you will not have a dash because the point is empty. And as I continue moving my pencil from left to right, the last place I touch is the arrow. And remember, when you touch the arrow, you are going to erase. Okay? So it means that this interval has a beginning but has no end because it goes to infinity. Now remember that the final answer must have the letter on the left, and in this case it doesn't. So that means we're going to flip. So that means the X goes to this side, the -3 goes to the other side, and we're going to flip the inequality sign, and this will be our final answer. Okay, so remember that we want always the letter to be on the left when we only have one number for the answer. All right, let's go ahead and do the range. For the range, I'm going to move from bottom up. The first place I touch is right there, which is -4 with no dash. And as I continue moving up, the last place I touch is the arrow, so that means I'm going to erase. And again, is this the final answer or I have to flip? Well, because the letter is not on the left, that means I need to flip. So that means this will be Y greater than -4. And there you go. And is this a function? And the answer is yes. The reason why is yes is because if you move from the left to right, you're only touching one point at a time. So that means this is a function. So yes, it is a function. Very good. Let's go on to the next set of problems. Okay, here we have again some more domain and range. So let's use our pencil as a ruler. So let me draw here a pencil. And we want to use it on the horizontal and on the vertical. When I look at this graph, I do have a line. So that means I want to do these setups for the interval. And since I'm here, I also notice the next problem also has a line. So I'm just going to go ahead and write down the setup. Now for the first problem here, I'm going to move my pencil from left to right. And the first place I touch is the arrow. So touching the arrow, that means I erase. And I continue moving until I stop touching the arrow. And last place I touch is right there, which is 0. And is it going to have a dash? Well, the point is empty, so no dash. Is this my final answer? Yes, it is, because the letter is already on the left, so there's no flipping to be done. All right, so now let's go on to the next thing, which is to find the range. And as I move up, the first place I touch is right here. And because I'm touching three things at the same time, which is the arrow, the line, and the point, please remember the line is the strongest. So that means, where am I touching? I'm touching at +2. And because the line is solid, I'm going to put a dash. Now it so happened that if I continue moving my pencil up, the last place I touch is the same place. So that means my end of my interval is again number 2. Whoops, number 2 with a dash. And whenever this happens, that the front number and the last number is the same, you're going to cross it over and you're going to write just the number 2, because basically the range is only the number 2. So please remember, if the beginning and the end of the interval is the same number, you cross it over and you put just the number as the answer. All right, is this a function? Yes, it is, because if you move from left to right with your pencil, you're only touching one point at a time, so this is a function. All right, last problem here for domain and range here with a graph. From left to right, first place I touch is the arrow. As I keep moving to the right, the last place I touch is the arrow, so I'm going to erase again. And please remember, when you erase the beginning and the end of the interval, you erase everything and you replace with letter R, which stands all real numbers. Because all the numbers for X will be part of the domain, both on the left and on the right, because this line is going forever on both sides. And now let's do the range. So I'm going to use the pencil from the bottom up on the horizontal, and the first place I touch is -3. So I'm going to write -3 with a dash. And the last place I touch is the arrow. So that means I will erase. And is this going to be my final answer, or need to flip? Well, the letter's not on the left, so you need to flip. So that means your final answer will have the Y on the left and the -3 on the right. And you're going to flip the inequality sign, and that will be our final answer. Perfect. Now, is this a function? Well, if you do the vertical line test and you move it across from left to right, you're only touching one point at a time, so that means this is a function. Perfect. Next one. Next one is asking for domain and is a table. So remember a table, you're going to write a list of numbers in numerical order. So the smallest number will be -4, followed by 4. Also remember that you do not repeat the numbers if they repeat on the table. Okay. The range will be the Y value. So the smallest one will be -1, followed by 0, followed by 1, 2, and 3. And is this a function? Well, the problem is the 4 repeats. So that means this is not a function, because to be a function, the X value cannot repeat. Here we have a list of order pairs. So let's look for the X values to find the domain. And we start with the smallest number, which is -2, followed by the next one, which will be 3. And the last one will be 4. And even though it repeats the 4, you only write it once. For the Y value, look for the second number. And we see that we have -2 as the smallest, followed by the 5, followed by the 7. And is this a function? No, it's not, because as you can see here, the number 4 repeats. And so that means this is not a function. Okay, let's continue. So here we have question number 5, where we're asked to find the function using the function notation f of -3. So what we're going to do is we're going to pull out a calculator. So here we have a calculator. What we're going to do is we're going to copy this function. So f of x, so right here, f of x, close parentheses, equals 2 divided by 3, arrow to the right, x squared minus 4x. Double check that you copy correctly. And now click on the second box and you're going to write f parentheses -3, close parentheses. And we got the answer, that is 18. So let's go ahead and write 18, and we're going to do the function g of x, close parentheses, equals -12, parentheses, 1 minus x, close parentheses, square, plus 7. Double check that you copy it correctly. And now we're going to do g of parentheses -5, close parentheses, and we get -425. There we go. Whoops, I wrote in the wrong place. -425. Let me erase this here. Very good. Now for the next problems, I still were using function notation, but now I have a graph or a table. Well, please remember that this is the x value. So basically, I'm going to look for the x value, which is 5, and then I go up until I touch the line, and I'm touching the line right here, which the value is 25. There you go. On the table, remember this is the x value, so you look for the x value -2. And what is the y value? Is -7. So there we go. And here we have a graph again, so please remember this is your x value, goes to the 4 right there. Then go down until you touch the line, and right there we notice that the value of the function at x equals 4 is -4. So there we go. Very good. Okay. Also, please be careful in this problem here that the scale of the graph is not, every little square is not 1. Every little square is worth 2 points. So that means this is -2 and this is -4. That's why I got -4 for my answer. Okay. Very good. Let's go on to the next problem. Next problem is to simplify expressions. Remember, simplify expression, you have 2 steps. First step is you're going to eliminate parentheses. So that means you're going to multiply. Please make sure to use your calculator in order to get the right answer. Okay, so -2 times 4 is -8x. -2 times -1 is +2. 4 times 2 is 8x. 4 times -1 is -4. Now we're going to combine like terms. So -8 plus 8, they cancel. And then you have 2 minus 4, which is -2. So that means this expression was simplified to -2. Next one, we're going to multiply. So this would be 7. So bring down the 7. -5 times 3 is -15y. -5 times -4 is +20. We're going to combine the 7 with the 20. So that means the -15 comes down. And 7 plus 20 is 27. So there we go. There's our answer. For the next one, it's 2 steps. Always remember 2 steps, okay? Also remember there's no number in front. You put an invisible 1. And if the number is not attached to a parenthesis, you're going to bring it down. So 8 times 4 is 32m. 8 times -9 is 72. -1 times 24 is -24. -1 times 34 is -34. And we bring down the -5m. Now we're going to combine like terms. So 32 combines with -34 and -5. If you punch that in the calculator, please remember you have a calculator. Don't be afraid to use it. Okay, so 32 minus 34 minus 5 gives you -7. Don't forget the letter M. And then -72, 24, if you put it in a calculator, will be negative 96. So that's your answer right there. The next problem has fractions. So let's go ahead and eliminate parentheses and let's use our calculator. So let me pull my calculator here, put it here to the side. And I'm going to type it in. 1 divided by 3. Please remember that you need to click the arrow to the right times 12. So that means this would be 4x. Now let's do the same thing for the next term. So let's use a calculator. So this would be 1 divided by 3, arrow to the right, times negative 15. That gives us negative 5. And then we're going to do negative 2/5. So negative 2 over 5. Whoops, forgot to click a new box. So let's click again. Negative 2 divided by 5, arrow to the right, times 10. And since I have my calculator here, I'm going to go ahead and multiply the next one, which is negative 2 divided by 5, arrow to the right, negative 5. Notice that I forgot to multiply here. So times. All right, so negative 2/5 times 10 is negative 4. So let's write there, negative 4. Negative 2/5 times negative 5 will be positive. Let's check it out there. Negative 2/5 times negative 5 is positive 2. And don't forget the x. Good. So now we have 4 and 2 makes it 6. And negative 5, negative 4 makes it negative 9. So there we go. We combine like terms. All right, the next one is an application of simplifying expressions. So in this problem, it's asking us to find the perimeter. Well, perimeter is the sum of all the sides. So that means I'm going to take all the sides of the triangle and I'm going to add them together. So I'm going to copy the first side right there, 4 parentheses 5x minus 11. I'm going to add to the next side here, which would be 3 parentheses 10 minus 3x, plus the last side, which is 2 times 3x minus 4. And that would be the perimeter. So then now I'm going to eliminate parentheses. Okay. So this would be 20x minus 44. 3 times 10 is 30. 3 times negative 3 is negative 9x. And 2 times 3 is 6x. And 2 times negative 4 is negative 8. Now let's combine like terms. So I'm going to combine the 20 with the negative 9 plus 3. And I'm also going to combine negative 44 plus 30 minus 8. So let's use the calculator this time here. So let's pull the calculator. Click a box here and we'll do 20 minus 9 plus 6. So I'm doing the numbers with x first. And I get 17. So this would be 17x. So I'm done with the x's. Now I'm going to do the numbers without x. So let's use the calculator again. Click a new box. And then I'm going to do negative 44 plus 30 minus 8. And when we do that, we get negative 22. Very good. And that's our answer. 17x minus 22. All right. Let's go on to the next problem. The next problem is to solve equations. Solve equations requires 5 steps. First step is to eliminate parentheses. So we're going to take the number outside and multiply by the numbers that are inside. Please remember that the equal sign acts like a border, okay? That divides the left side and the right side of the equation. So right there, negative 6a, we're just going to bring it down. 2 times 3 is positive 6a. 2 times negative 8 is negative 16. And then here goes the equal sign. Negative 5 times negative 6 is 30a. It's positive 30a. Negative 5 times negative 4 is positive 20. And then negative 6, since it's outside the parentheses, we're just going to bring it down. Next step in solving an equation is combine like terms on each side. So we're going to combine the negative 6a with positive 6a. And on this side, we're going to combine 20 with negative 6. So negative 6 plus 6 is 0. So they cancel, and we bring down the negative 16. The 30a, we just bring it down. And then we have 20 minus 6, which would be positive 14. All right, next step is to move the numbers. Remember, we want the numbers with letter on this side and numbers without letters on this side. Since 16 does not have a letter, we're going to send it to the other side, remembering the very important rule that says if you move sides, you change the sign of the number. So that means when I move the 16 to this side, it was negative number. Now it becomes a positive number. And then I go on to 30a. Is it going to stay or move? Well, it has a letter. It needs to move. So it's going to move to the other side and becomes negative 30a. And the 14 is positive, so we bring it down. So this would be negative 30a. And 16 plus 14 is 30. All right, next step is to divide both sides of the equation by the number next to the letter. So in this case, we're going to divide both sides by negative 30. And we got a equals negative 1. Here we go. All right, very good. Let's go on to the next problem. So if you notice right there, this is our border. And on this side, I don't have parentheses, so all I'm going to do is bring it down what I have for the time being. But on this side, I do have parentheses, so let's eliminate parentheses because that's the first step in solving equations. Please remember there's an invisible 1, so negative 1 times 2 is negative 2. Negative 1 times positive 2x is negative 2x. And then 3 times x is 3x. And 3 times 4 is positive 12. Now let's combine like terms. On this side, I can combine the 3 with a negative 3. And on this side, I can combine negative 2 with positive 12. And also I can combine negative 2x with positive 3x. So let's see right now. 3x goes down. 3 minus 3 cancels. Equals. Negative 2 plus 12 is 10. And negative 2 plus 3x is positive 1x. Now it's time to move the numbers. 3x has a letter, so it stays. The 10 does not have a letter, so it's on the right side, so we just bring it down. And the 1x has a letter, so it needs to move, becomes negative 1x. Now we're going to combine the terms again, so 3 minus 1 is 2x. And the 10, there's nothing I can do, so we bring it down. Now to get the x alone, we're going to divide both sides by 2. X equals 5. And there we go. That's the answer for our equation. Very good. Let's go on to the next problems. The next problems are inequalities, which is very similar to equations, except that you have an inequality sign instead of an equal sign. Okay, so let's continue here and solve this inequality. Okay, so first of all, we're going to eliminate parentheses. So this would be negative 2 minus 14y less or equal to negative 14y. Negative 2 times 3 is negative 6 plus 4y. Now the next step is combine like terms, but on this side I cannot combine, so I just bring it down. But on the other side, I can combine 14 with the 4, which will give me negative 10y. And the negative 6, we're going to bring it down. Next, the third step is to move the numbers. The 2 does not have a letter, so we're going to move. It becomes positive 2. The negative 14, we're going to bring it down. Negative 10 is on the wrong side. It needs to move, so we're going to send it and becomes positive 10y. And the negative 6, we're going to bring it down. All right, so now we have negative 14 plus 10 is negative 4y less or equal to 2 minus 6 is negative 4. And now we're going to get the letter y alone by dividing both sides by negative 4. So now we got the y alone, so y. Now you need to remember a very important rule of inequality that says if you divide by a negative number, you must flip the inequality sign. So since I'm dividing by a negative number, I'm going to flip the inequality sign, and negative 4 divided by negative 4 is positive 1. So that's one important thing about inequalities that must be remembered. Okay. The other thing is that you have to graph. So we're going to put the number that we found right in the middle, 2 numbers to the right, and 2 numbers to the left of 1. So in this case, it would be negative 1. And because I have a little dash, my point in front of the on top of the 1 will be solid. And this is like an arrow pointing to the right. And that's our graph. Very good. Let's complete the next inequality. Again, we have the inequality sign, so we put the border there. And now we're going to eliminate parentheses. We're going to multiply the number that is outside with the numbers that are inside the parentheses. Anything that is not connected to parentheses, we're just going to bring it down. So these two, I'm going to bring it down. Negative 4 times 3, I'm going to multiply. Negative 12. Negative 4 times 2x is negative 8x. Greater than negative 8 times x is negative 8x. Negative 8 times 1 is negative 8. Negative 8 times x is negative 8x. Negative 8 times 5 is negative 40. Now we're going to combine like terms on each side. So 4 is going to combine with negative 12. And the 3 is going to combine with negative 8. On this side, we have negative 8x is going to combine with the other negative 8x. And then here we have negative 8 combining with negative 40. All right, let's do the calculations. 4 minus 12 is negative 8. Negative 3 minus 8 is negative 11x. Greater than negative 8 minus 8 is negative 16x. Negative 8 minus 40 is negative 48. All right, now it's time to move the numbers. The 8 does not have an x, so it's going to move. It becomes positive 8. The negative 11x has x, so we're going to bring it down. The negative 16 has x, so we're going to move to this side, positive 16x. The negative 48 is going to bring it down. Now, negative 11 plus 16 is 5x. And 8 minus 48 is negative 40. Last step is to divide both sides by 5. And that means the 5 cancels. The x is left alone. Now, notice here, I am not dividing by a negative number, so we do not flip. Okay, doesn't matter that the top number is negative. What does matter is the bottom number. The bottom number is not negative, so that means we don't flip. So this would be -8. And the final thing we need to do is graph. Please remember, you put the number right in the middle, and two numbers to the right of -8 to be -7. Please remember, this is a negative number, so you count backwards. And then this would be -9 and -10. All right. Now on top of the number 8, we're going to use an empty circle because there's no dash on the inequality sign. And we're going to point to the right again because the arrow is pointing to the right. All right, very good. Let's go on to the next problem. The next problem, you're supposed to identify the inequality of the graph. So in order to do that, you need to identify the slope and the y-intercept. Okay, the y-intercept is pretty easy to find. It's right there. So it'll be 1. And then you try to find another good point. So where the line is touching the intersection of the grid line. And here we have that. And here we're going down 2 and we're running, no, down 3 and we're running 4. I'm sorry. Down 1, 2, 3, -3. And we're running 4. So our rise is -3 and our run is +4. So now we have y. The slope is -3 over 4x and +1. Now we need to decide, is it going to be greater than or equal to, or is it going to be less than or equal to? Well, I noticed that the line is dotted, so that means it's not going to have a dash underneath. And I noticed that I'm shading up the line, above the line, so that means it's going to be greater than. Okay, so that's how you decide about the symbol. Let's try the next problem. Next problem, the y-intercept is -3. We try to find another good point. Right there is another good point. So I see that I go up 2 over 3. So up 2 is +2 over 3. Please remember to always start with the point on the left. Like here, I started on the left. And so here I did 2. Okay. So please remember. Okay. So I went up 2 over 3. So that means this would be y. 2 over 3 x minus 3. Now the line has a dash, so that means it's either going to be greater than or equal to, or less than or equal to. Okay, now if you notice, I shaded below the line, so that means it will be less than, and I put a little dash. Okay. Next one, I have a horizontal line. Please remember, if the line going up is positive, if it's going down is negative, if horizontal is 0, and if it's vertical is no slope. So since I have a horizontal line, I know the slope is 0. The line is touching the y-intercept at 3. So that means my equation will have y, the slope is 0, so I don't have to write the 0x, and then I write just 3. Now I need to decide it's going to be greater than or less than. I do know I don't have the little dash underneath because the line is dotted, and because I'm shading below the line, it will be less than. The last problem here, I have the y-intercept at -2. And another good point is right there. So that means I started the left, I went down 3, and I run over 1. So this would be -3 over 1. So this would be y, -3 over 1x minus 2. Now I need to decide. Am I going to have a dash? No dash. And is it going to be above or below? Well, I color above the line, so be greater than. Okay. All right, so there we go. These are the answers for these problems. Okay. All right, let's go on to the next problem. Next problem is asking us to plot or draw the lines and shade. Okay, because these are all inequalities. So let's find the slope. The slope is the number with x, so this would be -4 over 1. And my b will be +1. Because I have no dash, I know my point will be an empty point, so I'm going to always start at the b So it'd be up 1, and I start with the point there. And then I look at the slope go down 4, and then I run 1. So down 1, 2, 3, 4 over 1. 1, 2, 3, 4 over 1. Then backwards. 1, 2, 3, 4 over 1. And then remember, you're going to use a dotted line. So let's use a dotted line right there. And there we go. These are is our line. Now we need to decide where we are going to shade. So please remember, this symbol is less than. So that means you go here and you're gonna ask your elevator to go down. So that means you're gonna shade below the line. Okay, so please remember that you look at the symbol, and if it's less than, you imagine here, use your elevator at the Y-intercept, and you're asking the elevator to go to a lower floor, a floor that is less than the one that you are right now. So you're gonna ask the elevator to go down. All right, let's go on to the next problem. Next problem, the Y-intercept is not there, so we put a 0. Now the slope is the number with x, so it would be -3 over 4. So that means we're going to start our graph at 0 with a solid point because there's a dash on the inequality symbol. And looking at the slope, I'm going to go down and over to the right. So down 3 over 4 to the right. Cannot go down 3 again. So I'm going to go backwards. Starting at the Y-intercept, I'm going to go, instead of going down 3, I'm going to go up 3, and then instead of going to the right, I'm going to go to the left. And these are all the points that I can draw. So now I'm going to connect with a straight line, and I'm going to use a solid line. So here is my graph. And let me fix that. Now, last thing you need to remember to do is to shade. This symbol is greater than, so that means you imagine here is your elevator, and you're going to shade above the line. There we go. All right, next problem. Next problem, we have x with a number by itself. So remember, this is a special case where the slope is no slope and the y-intercept is not applicable. So that means in order to draw this graph, you're going to go on the x-axis and you're going to look for -2. Once you find it, you're going to draw a line right there, and in this case, it's going to be a dotted line because there's no dash on the inequality symbol. Very good. So here's my line, and I'm going to shade. Now, because this is a vertical line, you just use this as an arrow. So the arrow is pointing to the left. So you're going to shade right there. And there we go. These are our graphs for these 3 problems. Okay, the next problems. If you notice, the y is not alone. So the first thing we're going to do is move the numbers so that the y will be alone. So in this case, we're going to bring down the -12y. The 3x is going to move us -3x. And we're going to bring down the 24. Once we do that, we're going to divide both sides of the inequality by -12. And this will be y. Please notice that we're dividing by negative numbers, so it's going to flip the inequality sign. And then we'd use the calculator. So we're going to divide -3 divided by -12. And we get a decimal, so we're going to change that back to a fraction, gives you 1/4. So we click right there. This would be y. The inequality sign flips. -3 divided by 12 is 1/4 x. And 24 divided by -12 is -2. So right there we have the y alone, and we can identify our slope, which is 1/4, and our b is -2. Please notice there's no dash, so that means we're going to use an empty point. So go down 2, and then we'll look at the slope. Slope is positive 1, so go up 1 over 4. So up 1 over 4. And then backwards, down 1 over 4. And now we're going to connect the lines, the dots, using a dashed line. So we connect right there. And the last thing is to shade. So we're going to look at the inequality sign, which is greater than. So that means we'll put our pencil at the Y-intercept. We want to be in a place that is greater than the we are. So that means we're going to shade above the line. Okay. Let's go on to the next problem. The next problem, again, we don't have the y alone, so we're going to move the 4x to the other side. So this would be 8y. The 4x comes down, come over as positive 4x. We bring down the 16. Now we're going to divide both sides by 8. So this would be y. Please notice here we're not going to flip because we're not dividing by a negative number. Now using our calculator, 4 divided by 8 is 0.5. So we change to a decimal, which is change to a fraction, so it's 1 over 2. So this would be 1 over 2x, and 16 divided by 8 is positive 2. There we go. So this would be 1 over 2, and our b is positive 2. So for this graph, again, we don't have a dash, so we're going to use empty points. We're going to start at 2. And then looking at the slope, I'm going to go up 1 and over 2 to the right. So up 1 over 2, up 1 over 2, up 1 over 2. Then backwards, down 1 over 2, down 1 over 2, and so forth. Now we're going to connect the dots using a dotted line. There you go. Whoops. There we go. And now we're going to shade. So we look at the symbol, which is less than, so that means we're going to go down. So we shade below the line. There we go. Very good. Let's go on to the next problem. Next problem is we don't have the y alone, but the only thing we can do is divide. So we're going to divide both sides by negative 10. So this would be y. We are dividing by negative numbers, so we're going to flip. And we're going to use our calculator to find out what's negative 15 divided by negative 10. So let's see there. 15 divided by negative 10 gives a decimal. We click right there, and it reduces to negative 3 over 2x. So our slope is negative 3 over 2, and our b is 0. So we're going to use a solid point. We're going to start at 0, and there we're going to go down 3 over 2, down 3 over 2, and now backwards, up 3 over 2, up 3 over 2. Now we're going to connect the dots using a solid line. So there we go. And we're going to look at the inequality sign right there. The inequality sign is greater than, so we put the pencil at the y-intercept, and we're going to go up. So that means we're going to shade above the line. So there you go. This is our graph for this problem right here. Okay. All right, let's go on to the next problem. The next problem is a multiple choice and is asking about which coordinate pair represent the solution to the inequality. So that means we need to graph and then make the points. So let's go ahead and get the y alone. So that means we bring down the negative 2y. The 6x goes to the other side, negative 6x, and we bring down the negative 10. Then we divide both sides by negative 2. And that means y is alone. We flip the inequality sign. This would be 3x, because 6 divided by 2 is 3. And negative 10 divided by 2 is 5. So right there is our equation with the y alone. We identify our slope to be 3. And we make sure to put a 1 underneath. And our b is 5. So that means I'm going to go to my graph and I'm going to go to number 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I make an empty point right there. Then I look at the slope. The slope is positive, so I'm going to go up. And on the bottom is positive as well, so I go to the right. Now in this problem here, I cannot go up 3 over 1. So then I go backwards, down 3, 1 to the left. Down 3, 1 to the left. Down 3, 1 to the left, and so forth until I finish the whole graph. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect using a dotted line. So here's my dotted line right there. And now that I connected, I'm going to shade. And right here it says greater than, so that means I'm going to shade above the line. Now next thing I need to do is draw the points. So let's go ahead and draw the points. This is 2, 2. So let's go and draw the point 2 up 2. So that's point A. Then we have negative 1, 2. So negative 1, 2 is right there. This point C. Then I have 2, negative 1. That's point B. And the next one is negative 2, 4, which definitely is on the shaded region. So I know for sure that it's going to be letter D. Oh, and by the way, I made a mistake on point B. Is positive 2 down 1. Okay, so I noticed I made that mistake, so please forgive me. All right, very good. Let's go on to the next set of problems. On the next set of problems is asking us to find the different features of a table, one of them being the Y-intercept. So please remember, Y-intercept always have 0 on the first coordinate, and the X-intercept always have 0 on the second coordinate. So if I'm looking for the Y-intercept, I look for the 0 here, and I notice that the Y-intercept is 3. And same way for the X-intercept, I look for 0 right here, and I'll find that is number 2. Now the word 0 means the X-coordinate of the X-intercept, so that would be 2. And then for the slope, remember the formula, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So you need to pick 2 good points over here. So let's say I pick these 2 right here, the 2 bottom ones right there. It doesn't matter which one you pick. Okay, so I'm just going to pick these ones. So I'm choosing 8, negative 9, and 12, negative 15. First thing I'm going to do is label the points. So x1, y1, x2, y2. Now that I picked, I plug it in the formula. So y2 is negative 15 minus y1 is negative 9. Please notice that there's 2 negatives there. One came from the formula, and one came when I plug it in y1. Next one is x2, 12 minus x1, which is 8. So now 2 negatives becomes positive, so negative 15 plus 9 is negative 6. And 12 minus 8 is 4. When you put in that in the calculator, this will be negative 3 over 2. All right, very good. Let's go on to the next problem. Next problem is similar thing. You're going to find looking for the y-intercept, and you're looking for the x-intercept. Please remember, y-intercept has 0 on the first coordinate and x-intercept on the second coordinate. On the graph, the y-intercept is very easy to find. You look for the y-axis, and here's where the line touches. So that answer will be 20 right there. And for the x-intercept, you look for where the line touches the x-axis. So in this case, will be 6. Again, the 0 is the x-coordinate for the x-intercept. So the answer is 6. And for the slope, since I have a graph, I'm going to use rise over 1. Okay, and so I picked 2 good points, and in this case could be these 2 points right there, or also you could find these 2 good points right here. So we notice right there. So how many do I go down? I went down 10 units, so this would be negative 10, and I ran 3 units to the right, so it'll be 3 on the bottom. So the slope is negative 10 over 3. And there we go. Let's go on to the next set of problems. Next set of problems is word problem here that says to find the equation of the line in slope-intercept form that goes through these points. Please remember to label x1, y1, x2, y2, and you're going to use the formula of the slope, so which is y2 minus y1, x2 minus x1. So y2 is 3 minus 1, and x2 is negative 3 minus 3. So this would be 2 over negative 6. If you put this in the calculator, it'd be negative 1/3. So that is our slope. Now we need to find the equation of the line, so we're going to use the second formula, which is this formula here. Y minus y1 equals mx minus x1. You're going to plug it in the information, so y1 is 1. The slope is negative 1/3. X minus x1 is 3. Now remember, first step is to eliminate parentheses, so we're going to write y minus 1 equals negative 1/3 x, and negative 1/3 multiplied by negative 3 on the calculator gives us positive 1. Last thing, we want the y alone, so we're going to move the 1 to the other side. So it'll be 1 minus 1/3 x plus 1. So this would be y equals 1/3 x plus 2. So there we go. That's our answer for this problem. Let's go on to the next problem. Same thing. So x1, y1, x2, y2. I'm going to use the slope formula, which is y2 minus y1, x2 minus x1, and we'll plug it in the numbers. So this will be negative 5 minus y1, which is negative 2. Please be careful here. We have an example where we have 2 negatives there. And then x2 is 3 minus 6. Please remember 2 negatives becomes positive. Positive. So it means the bottom is 9, and on the top will be negative 3 over 9. When you put that in the calculator, this will become reduced to negative 1/3. Now that we have that, we're going to use the point slope formula, which is y minus y1 equals m x minus x1. And we're going to plug it in the information. So y minus negative 2 our slope is negative 1 over 3. X minus x1 is negative 6. So this would be positive 2. We're going to eliminate parentheses. Please remember that this is also positive. So this would be negative 1/3 x. Negative 1/3 times positive 6 is negative 2. And last thing, we need to get the y alone. So we're going to move the 2 to the other side. So this would be negative 2. Negative 1/3 x minus 2. Y equals negative 1/3. We're combining 2 with the 2, so it gets negative 4. And that's our answer right there. All right, let's go to the last two problems. We're going to label first. x1, y1, x2, y2. We're going to use our slope formula. So x2 minus x1. We're going to plug it in the number. So y2 is 7 minus the y1 is 7. And then we have 8 minus 4. 7 minus 7 is 0 over 4. And please remember 0 divided by 4 is 0. So that means our slope is 0. So we're going to use the formula y minus y1 equals m x minus x1. So it'll be y minus y1 is 7. The slope is 0. X minus x1 is 4. Now please remember 0 times anything is 0. So this would be y minus 7 equals 0. To get the y alone, we move the 7. So y equals 7. Last problem. Again, label it. x1, y1, x2, y2. Use the formula. y2 minus y1, x2 minus x1. Plug it in the numbers. y2 is 12 minus y1 is 9. And then 2 minus x1 is 2 again. So 12 minus 9 is 3, and 2 minus 2 is 0. Now please remember, when the 0 is on the bottom, you cannot divide, because even if you put in a calculator, it's going to say undefined. When it's undefined, it's going to be a special case. So that means it's not going to be an equation which starts with y. It's going to be an equation that starts with x. And to find the value, all you have to do is look at the points. And if you notice, the x value is always the same. So in this case, is 2. So there you go. Let's complete our final exam review. I hope this video was helpful. Thank you very much for your time, and have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.